You're listening to Biz-Souls, the business podcast with an edge, hosted by me, Rona Lewis, and Jeffrey Hansler. Tune in for perspectives and discoveries about the changing world of business. It's time to connect to the heart, soul, and humor of how business gets done. You're very noisy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Biz-Souls. I'm Rona Lewis.
I'm Jeffrey Hansler, and we get to the heart and soul of business and the people that make it happen.
And we have a people today. We have my friend Melissa Dinwiddie, who is one of my play buddies, and she just wrote a book called Innovation at Work. And say hi, Melissa.
Hi, Melissa.
There you go. Perfect. So I'm gonna tell everybody about you because I have to read. So I have to put on my glasses. Melissa helps leaders and teams in high-stakes industries unlock, speak Rona, creativity, elevate communication, and build resilient cultures of innovation through engaging keynotes, active learning workshops, and strategic consulting. Whether you're navigating complexity, driving change, or leading through uncertainty, she uses the power of play, storytelling, and the arts to make the impossible feel possible and even fun. She helps leaders and teams in high-stakes industries. This is her background. She trained as a dancer at Juilliard and is a professional artist, jazz singer, songwriter, who somehow ended up in boardrooms at Google, Meta, Salesforce, and Uber, teaching analytical teams the things standing between them and their next big breakthrough in their fear of doing things. Is their fear of doing things badly. Her new book, Innovation at Work, which I just said, gives leaders 52 bite-sized experiments to unstick their teams and spark ideas starting tomorrow. So every week you get something new to play with. Welcome, Melissa.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So we have our famous first question. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
What'd you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a veterinarian because I loved animals so much.
So did I. What did you find out? Why didn't you go that way?
Well, I interned at a vet in high school, and being an intern is really different from being a vet. All I really did was kind of take big bottles of lotion and fill small bottles with the lotion from the big bottles. So it's really different from obviously being a vet. But I don't know. I think I realized that loving animals and being a vet, loving animals and being a vet, like
two different things.
There are lots of ways to love animals besides being a vet.
Agreed. I think we found out the same thing. I was working for a vet, and finally this lady left with this dog that was overfed, and she's pampering it to death and basically killing her dog, and the dog was suffering. She wouldn't put it down. And when she left, I turned to the vet. Why didn't you tell her, she should put the dog down, or she should, change its diet? And he goes, we'll go to lunch because you're not going to do well in this business because that's my bread and butter. He says, we do it. And every other vet that I looked at, it was the same thing. They care about the animals. The ones that did tell, though, they didn't do as well financially. And it's very expensive, especially in California. So
yeah.
So I like your summary. There are other ways to be kind to animals without being a vet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've also since learned that veterinarians have one of the highest suicide rates of any career.
They've passed dentists. Her dad was a dentist.
My dad was a dentist, yeah. Luckily, he lived till 92, so he did not commit suicide.
He was one of those that didn't.
He was the one.
I didn't know that about dentists.
Yeah.
I mean, veterinarians you can understand because they're dealing with these patients who don't have a way to communicate. And so they see all this suffering and they don't have a way to alleviate it so easily, right? And, if you're empathic and you go into become a veterinarian because you're empathic and you love animals and you're just constantly surrounded by suffering that you can't alleviate, right. I can see that. But with dentists, I didn't know that.
Yep. Anyway, we digress though. So how did you get from wanting to be a veterinarian to what you're doing now. What's your story? Tell us everything.
It's a long and windy road. I am really a creative at heart, but I spent a lot of my years believing that I was a non-creative person because I got very mired in the comparison trap and perfectionism. And I spent the bulk of my teen years and my 20s not doing any art. I did study dance and got very deeply into dance and spent a year at Juilliard thinking that I was going to end up being a professional dancer, but then I got injured, and that was the end of my dance career.
Okay.
I spent 5 years on the quest for the miracle cure and graduated from UC Berkeley, pursued a master's degree thinking I was going to get a PhD, and then finally came back to creativity in my late 20s and kind of felt like, Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, when she gets picked up by the tornado and lands in Oz and, starts off in black and white and then opens the door and into Technicolor. That's how I felt. Like, oh my God, I get to do art and creative things. I get to have that in my life again. That's what it felt like. Like I'm suddenly in Technicolor. And so I started just exploring all sorts of creative pursuits and fell madly in love with the art of calligraphy and ended up turning that into a little hobby business that then turned into my source of income when I got divorced. Mm-hmm. And that became my business. And for 15 years, I made my living as a calligraphic artist. Wow. And my main product, as it were, was Jewish marriage contracts. It's called a ketubah.
And they get really ornate.
Elaborate.
I had one when I was married, yeah.
Yes. So that was my main thing. I was a ketubah artist. And I got very burned out because I got caught up in a story that everything I made had to make money and everything I made had to be amazing. And there's nothing more paralyzing than, the belief that everything you make has to be amazing. Right. So I was very good at serving my clients and making art for my business, but never made any art for myself. So I got incredibly burned out and had to figure out, how do I get back to making art for my feeding my own soul. Mm-hmm. And realized that the route back was through play. But I'd forgotten how to play because I'd spent about a decade making art only for clients. And I'm nothing if not a good rule follower. So I developed a set of what I called rules for myself to get myself back into the mind space of being a little kid in order to play. And
which is weird. It's that's kind of like an oxymoron,
right?
When you're playing, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Well, the rules were kind of like, think process, not product. There is no wrong, things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And over a year or two, those little handful of rules expanded into 10, which now form the 10 guideposts of my first book, The Creative Sandbox Way. And because I thought I had the metaphor of being like a little kid playing in a sandbox.
Right.
And that's where I needed to get into that state of flow, right? That the being a little kid, just exploring, making messes. That is my ideal space for creativity. So I ended up kind of, I discovered that what worked for me worked for other people. And because of that, I was writing a blog at the time, sharing my process. And I kind of fell backwards into a second business as a creativity instigator, creativity coach. I developed creativity courses. I was doing online creativity coaching groups. I had creativity community online, and everything was online except once a year I ran a creativity retreat, which I still do. And at that retreat, one of the things that I did was every morning after breakfast, I would lead people through a creative catalyzing session, leading people through improv activities to get them out of their heads into their bodies. Nice. So that they could send the gremlins off to get a pedicure, while they would then be able to get down to the business of doing their creative thing. And as I was leading people over the years through these creative catalyzing sessions, I would think to myself, gee, this is the same thing that I would be doing with, a team of corporate leaders or engineering managers or, any organizational team, I would just be debriefing it differently.
Right.
And by the way, those people would actually have resources to pay me as opposed to the starving artists that I'm working with now. Why don't I pivot to work with organizations? So in 2017, that's what I did. But then I had to sort of climb a new learning curve of how to sell into, corporate spaces, which I'd never done before, and I didn't have a corporate network. So that was kind of like climbing Mount Everest to learn how to do that.
So you've talked about creativity, and then your book is about innovation at work. So what's the distinction between the two for you?
Yeah, I love this question. So creativity is an ingredient that's required for innovation. Creativity is basically solving problems, and innovation is taking those problems to do something new with them, with those problems. To solve a problem, to do something new with it.
Okay.
So you talk about we were talking about oxymorons and things that are counterintuitive. In your book, you talk about how some of your most analytical thinkers end up being your most innovative. So how do you get that out of them?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because I work with a wide variety of people. Sometimes I do work with the creative types, like the creative team, but I do a lot of working with the analytical types, the research team, the engineering team, those more analytical types. And they often think that, they're not creative, right? And it's really hard to be creative when you think you're not creative.
Right.
And, analytical minds already have a couple of things that turn wild ideas into reality. They've got discipline and they've got pattern recognition. And they just need permission and structure to apply those skills creatively. Mm-hmm. So just like you, Rona,
yeah,
I use a lot of, I don't call them games necessarily, and I don't necessarily call
playtivities. That's what I call them, playtivities.
I call them experiments. I call them activities.
Perfect.
I call them, whatever's going to jibe with their way of thinking.
Yeah.
But I run them through activities that will help, make light bulbs go off over their head and help them sort of shift the paradigm so that they start to think of themselves as creative. So, for example, I ran a session. It was a really short session, actually, during a day-long professional development day for Project Management Institute, the San Francisco Bay Area chapter. And I asked them to tell collaborative stories, one word at a time.
Oh.
This was an AI-focused day, and I had them throw in an AI voice. So one person represented the AI voice, and that AI voice was throwing in random curveballs. And these are people who live and breathe Gantt charts.
Oh, God. That's right.
And within minutes, they discover something really profound. When they treated surprises as obstacles, the stories died. But when they treated the surprises as prompts, the stories expanded. And that's exactly the adaptive capacity that you need to thrive with AI. Right. And shifting markets and uncertainty of any kind, right? So that helped them rethink the story that they had in their own head about themselves as creative.
And that makes a lot of sense. I use the term wabi-sabi because that's the art of imperfection. And play is imperfect, and what you're doing shows them that it's okay. So
yeah, exactly.
Which is awesome, and that's your other. I don't know if I'd call it a quote, but yeah, I guess it is. The make crap.
Yes.
Which is great. So, and there is an absolute, we both know this, a business case for imperfection. So where do you find that coming in for the most part?
Yeah, so make crap is the second principle, the second step of my Create the Impossible framework, which is a 3-step framework. And it's usually the one that makes people's inner perfectionist want to sort of curl up in a fetal position. And the business case is that perfectionism is the single biggest killer of innovation. When the bar is to, get it right, people self-censor their best and their weirdest ideas before they ever get it out of their heads. But when crap is the goal, people share ideas that they would normally kill before anyone else could see them. And those ideas, those, crappy ideas, they're often the seeds of breakthroughs.
Absolutely.
And my new book, Innovation at Work, is itself an imperfection project about imperfection. I wrote it using my own make crap philosophy, getting it out there before it was perfect, iterating and learning. And the meta story here is the message.
Yeah. Yeah. And I read your book, and I thought it was, so many of them are just brilliant. Your ideas and suggestions for different kinds of teams. And, it's super fun. Super fun.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. You're welcome.
2 questions. First one was about how did you, so you weren't part of the corporate world, and then you got into the corporate world. So what are some of the things you did to enter into that market?
Oh,
Who would you sleep with to get into?
Wow.
I'm kidding. Hey, sometimes it works.
it has been really challenging. So, for a long time, I thought my artistic background was something that I needed to overcome to be taken seriously in corporate spaces. And it turns out it's actually my biggest competitive advantage, because I can unlock things in analytical teams that traditional consultants can't.
Right.
The key insight for me is that I stopped positioning my work as creativity training, and I also stopped saying yes to requests for recess kind of jobs, because that's not actually what I do. And I started really positioning my work as what it really is, which is innovation strategy. Not creativity training, innovation strategy, and not recess. I have lots of colleagues who do that kind of work. I'm perfectly capable of doing that kind of work. But what I really do is strategy. It's very strategic. So rather than, talking about, say, creativity training, I talk about innovation strategy, even though
It's the same thing.
creativity, it might be the same work, but the conversations that
Words
I'm
are
having
important.
really different, and the buyers are different.
Yeah.
And I stopped also, this is really important for anybody who might be looking to get into, corporate selling or whatever. I stopped leading with methodologies, and I started leading with the problems that I solve and the value that I create.
Right.
Very good.
Yeah.
Which is, he's an expert in sales, so I would say it was a good flip, huh?
Yeah, it was excellent. I'm interested though in, so one of the biggest frustrations for trainers, this is around the world, is people come to a class, they have a training on something like innovation or being innovation or implementing innovation strategy. And then they get back into the quote unquote real world, and their company, their organization kills it. Because for whatever reason, it's not the way it's done here. We've never done it that
Fear.
way. We're regulated. We can't do that. If I do that, I could get fired. So what do you see are some of the things companies could do to encourage more of the work that you get the people that are attending one of your programs?
Open-mindedness, basically. A growth mindset. Yeah.
Well, you're actually speaking to one of the reasons why I decided to write my book, Innovation at Work, where it touches me as somebody who's selling into companies. Is the biggest pushback that I get tends to be, we don't have the time to pull people away from their desks. more even than we don't have the budget to pay you what what you are charging. And so the book is most of the experiments in the book are 15 minutes or less to run. So, some are 25 or 30 minutes, and there are 7 total in the book that require an extended period of, like it takes a week to run the experiment or something like that. But most of them are 15 minutes or less. So they're designed to be incorporated into your work week, to run, during your stand up with your team, that kind of a thing. So it doesn't require you to pull your team away from their desk for an offsite, which also speaks to, not necessarily exactly what you're talking about, but adjacent to what you're talking about, where people will pull their team away for an innovation session that is completely removed from what they're doing in their day-to-day, and then expect them to bring that back into their workday, but they've just done something that's completely removed and detached from their workday. And then what's going to happen when they go back to work is they're going to completely forget about what happened in that totally detached and separate session. But what we need is innovation to be happening all the time.
Yeah.
And you can't say, okay, well, now we need to innovate. Now let's go, call in the special innovation session person and
one and done. Yeah. There's no such thing.
It doesn't work that way.
Right.
We need to constantly be innovating. We need to develop the muscles for creativity and innovation to be happening all the time. How do we do that if the innovation is only going to be happening in a special offsite?
Right.
That's just not realistic. So I wanted the book to help people to build those muscles in an ongoing, habitual kind of way. Just like if you go to the gym so that you build muscles, so that you can, use those muscles day to day, right? So
creativity is a muscle
regularly, but exactly.
I know this.
Excellent strategies, and I apologize. The cats have been very possessive lately.
This is his cat, Indy.
I am a cat person, so
he's got 2. There's another one that's like, I don't know, but Indy's like, he's right there.
Yeah, the only reason my cats are not here right now is because Vinny would be chewing paper and chewing cords on my desk right now if I allowed him in the room.
Yeah. Anyway,
And
go ahead. So do you have any tips for anyone who wants to go in this, or tips from your book? You have 1 minute. Go. I'm kidding. But what would you say to someone who is, would love to bring creativity into business where it's so sorely needed?
Well, if you're a leader, one of the tips that I highly recommend is to model, and psychological safety is so incredibly important. So, if you can buy my book, great, buy my book and run experiments. But, even more important than buy my book is model that failure is okay by going first and showing it that it is okay to be imperfect by allowing yourself to demonstrate your own imperfection to your team. If they see that it is okay for you to be imperfect, that will allow them to be imperfect. But if you demonstrate that you can never allow yourself to make mistakes, never allow yourself to be imperfect in front of them, do you think they're going to ever allow themselves to make mistakes or be imperfect or try taking risks? They're not going to. Right. So that's the number one thing that you can do as a leader in order to help create psychological safety in your team and in your organization.
Fantastic. Now, where can people get your book, and how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my book launches on March 10th, and it will be available on Amazon. I'll also be offering a special leadership edition on my website at melissadinwiddie.com, and that will include a special series of 5 videos that will have extra content. There's bonus content that you can get from a link in the book as well, but these 5 videos with the leadership series, the leadership edition, will be exclusive to that version on my website at melissadinwiddie.com.
Excellent. And then your email is melissa@melissadinwiddie.com, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
There we go.
Excellent. Fantastic.
Awesome. I love bonuses. Score, bonus, extras.
You can also get a preview of the book at innovationatworkbook.com/preview if you want to see what it's like before you check it out.
Oh, that sounds great. That sounds great.
Yay. Very good. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for playing with us today. I look forward to hearing how successful your book is. And we play people have got to get that play out into the world because we're making it an industry. So yay us. And I just think, you are like the picture of creativity in the book, in the dictionary. I mean, you sing, you play music, you're a fantastic artist, you dance. It's like you just have a big C up on your, in a good way, So yay you. Any other comments?
No, those are pretty good comments.
Thank you. I'm very good like that.
Listen,
I
this is great.
appreciate my...
Love your smile. I wish you all the success in the world on this continued success.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
All right. This was awesome. That's it for today. I'm Rona Lewis.
I'm Jeffrey Hansler.
And this has been Biz-Souls. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, share, tell all your friends, make comments, do all the nifty stuff. That will help our numbers better because we really need them. Okay, that's it. We're done. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Biz-Souls podcast with your hosts, Rona Lewis and Jeffrey Hansler. Did you have fun? Subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Talk to you next week.